Hello. Hey, there we go. Sorry. Crime family. Past two games have been great hockey. Yeah. Oh, the irony. Just sharing this out a little bit here. Give me a minute. Trying to get myself together. But if you have any other questions, throw them in the chat there. We'll get it started. Cool. Some people joining. Cool. Anybody got questions? Setting game tonight. I could see maybe not everybody wants to talk Flyers right now, which I would understand. All right, Cliff, we got something. All right, Morin. Hit should not have been a 5 in a game misconduct. He was skating besides the Islanders player and was just stronger. Yeah, I mean, okay, so do I agree? Let me think about that. Okay, so I don't agree that it's a 5-minute major. I think the severity of the hit probably made them think it was a 5-minute major. I do think to some degree I understand why they would make a penalty, why you would call and why you would want to see the guy in the box, right? Was it a 5 in a game misconduct? I think the game misconduct came because of the injury, so it was kind of like a default call. But overall, I don't think it was justified. I think it could have changed the entire game. Right, like a minor at worst, like a 2-minute makes sense to me, right? A 2-minute penalty makes sense. You could say he got him in the numbers, though. I would argue if it was Shane Gostisbehere pushing him along the boards, he wouldn't have gone flying into the boards, right? I mean, it's just a sheer thing that Moore is just much stronger, easily. I'm going to continue to share this out, and then I'm going to share some more thoughts. So, we got another question. Cliff, it came after the Voracek. Yeah, well, yeah, but Voracek is a play driver, so the likelihood of him not having a turnover during the game is unlikely. Like he's the type of player where he's going to be driving play. And realistically, we have to do a good job responding to when we make a bad play. Yeah, I mean, well, I would argue that is a dangerous spot. And if you look at most of Voracek's issues, right? If it is going up the middle, that is a risky situation. What's up, Red Mender? I like that. It's a risky play, but it's one that's understandable. You can't necessarily leash up a guy like Voracek. You have to allow them to kind of free flow. The issue really comes to is why doesn't the team collapse around the play better? And I honestly think Moore's just kind of not been getting much luck. I mean, like he's playing super physical and he is much stronger than a lot of guys. So I don't want to make too much of that penalty. And overall, it's not really the reason the Flyers lost in the end. So it's understandable to be upset about it, but I don't think it's that much of a game changer of a moment. And when you just look at the overall game, you know, you're not actually looking at that moment. You can actually make a case that with that hit on the guy, on a guy like Cizikas, who is a pest in a lot of ways. It was kind of a momentum changing moment. The Flyers actually leveraged it in the end. So while it is annoying and unfortunate and probably could have helped us to not deal with that, at the end of the day, they kind of used it against the Islanders. So it wasn't too bad. They didn't lose because of it. Yeah, I would agree that more Crime Family. I agree more has to know his own strength, but is it his job to limit his strength? Maybe I understand like taking care of the player, but at that point, he's really not pressing up against the guy's back. It's more just the sheer size versus Cizikas. It's a tough one. I mean, he's going to have to worry about it. He's going to get called. He doesn't have respect from the ref. So to your point, he's going to have to know when he's putting guys in dangerous positions because they're going to call him on it. I mean, it's quite obvious. Are you guys Flyers fans? Yes, we are Flyers fans. This is a live post game for the Flyers. Red Mender. All right, so let's go through the game. I mean, I'll go through my thoughts overall. It's kind of hard to watch the season as it is. It's just there's a lot of pain and suffering in this year. It's you're an Islanders fan. Well, welcome to our chat. You can feel free to talk along or to ask questions. You want to hear more of our suffering. But man, this game, it's hard to be enthusiastic about it in any sense, even getting the extra point at this point, because the Flyers are so far behind from where the expectations were that it just feels like hope is dwindling. Really feels like it's dwindling in a lot of ways. No, Cliff, keep asking questions. Don't worry about it, man. If people aren't putting in the chat, I mean, I love the questions in the chat, so please ask away. The more interaction, the better, in my opinion. I don't mean to hog all the questions for the chat. You've been a fan for 47 years. Yo, respect. I'm frustrated by the shootout. We don't have snipers and lose too often. Flyers do play better with 3-on-3. Yeah, it's actually 3-on-3 is their strength, but it's almost like everything that the Flyers were good at, it just doesn't seem to matter this year. I mean, we have the Selke candidate center. I mean, we have Sean Couturier, and our penalty kill stinks. And I know Lindblom isn't the same player was the year before, obviously because of the cancer treatment. Also, exceptional PK player. Same with Claude Giroux, especially in history. Kevin Hayes, pretty adequate. Scott Lawton. It's very confusing as to why all of the special teams have collapsed. And the only thing that's essentially maintained is the team's depth and ability to score throughout the lineup. But without that, I mean, it's been punishing. And respect for 47 years of watching this team. As far as I'll say this, at least there's some victories here, man. We're not the worst team. We're not the worst franchise, but I don't blame you for being frustrated with the way things are. It's very hard to say the Flyers have an identity right now this year. Last year they did. They were a tough team to play against. They're a team that won through team effort. And this year, I don't see that. Yeah, thanks. Sport Fanatic News. I appreciate it. Listen, it's really, people call me positive, but I really play the long game because everything's a strategy. Like, I don't really look at losses as the end of the world. I don't ever panic. I never want to trade guys because things are down. Everything is kind of a game of inches in the NHL, right? It's like these are the best players, the 1% of the 1%. And to throw the whole board over just because you lost doesn't make sense. I'm strategizing for the next game, for the next season, for the next 10 games. Everything is adjustable. And even, you can turn an entire season around within a season. But going into next season, I wouldn't be surprised the Flyers are the best team in the league next year. I know it sounds insane, but they have all the pieces to do it. If they do the right moves in between, you can do it. You can do it. I'm not saying it's the most likely thing, but it's absolutely possible, and they clearly have the depth. We haven't even seen a guy like Wade Allison up here. Crime family Lawton. What about Lawton? Just he's good? Or the Flyers so good last year? What happened? The Flyers were good. Honestly, we lost a lot of veteran voices in the room. We hit struggles this year, and we never responded well. You know, we went through COVID, and that it seems to hurt every team that it's gone through. But we haven't been able to recover. Right? It's not an excuse, but it's like it's the lack of poise through the team is noticeable. And on defense, it's definitely there. And it doesn't help that, you know, Justin Braun is your most poised defenseman. And it's not a knock on our defensemen. It's really that they're young. They're really young guys, and majority of them are not going to be studs in the league for a while. Sports Fanatic, let me look at this. I thought Lazinski was good in the first 2 games and very good on the dot. Surprised me he got benched. AV likes to bring in the young guys real slow. You know what I mean? Like he brings them in, he takes them out. I think he likes to get them in practices a little bit. I think Lazinski's good. I just don't think it's a big difference maker. And I think at the end of the day, like what I was saying about vets, I think this team lacks poise, and Lazinski's not going to help with that, but Michael Raffel might. I think Lazinski is here to stay, probably either till the end of the year, or you know, just the fact that he'll probably be part of the NHL squad next year. There's a good chance. But I'll say this: there's going to be some players moving. I mean, we should all be aware of that. There's going to be changes made, whether we like it or not, and probably for the best. There's still a ton of young talent. We forget Morgan Frost isn't even here. If he was here, this would be completely different as well. We don't even know what kind of progress he would have made. All right, let me look here real quick. I got to catch up. Love the comments, by the way. Keep it coming. Such a downer to come back again. Go down by 2 goals just to lose in a shootout. Yeah, skills competition. Bill Meltzer always calls it that. You know what, though? I will say this. We had an opportunity to take in the skills competition, and we didn't. And, you know, it's these losses really aren't that bad. They only feel bad because of the compounding losses, right? Like if this is the way we were losing, we wouldn't be out of a playoff race. Like that's not the results of what would be happening. It is frustrating, but it's not the worst way to lose, right? I'd rather lose this way than the way we were losing, right? We were actually losing this way early last year and then turn the whole thing around, right? Once we went on that win streak, you propelled yourself to be an exceptional team, right? We were kind of a good team and then went great. You know, now we're a bad team. We have the Flyers are at SpongeBob episode. He is searching for a name in his head, except instead of the name of their identity, by the way, it's Joe Yariv. I don't know. This whole season seems like a SpongeBob episode. How about that? Seems like a cartoon. Crime Family. I've been impressed with the Flyers played the last 2 games. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, right? If they were losing this way, we wouldn't be upset, right? We're upset at the way that they're losing. The lack of overall consistency within a game. And it's not like, you know, to what Voracek was saying, it's not about a 60-minute effort, right? But it's about not collapsing, right? It's about these stints where they lose the game in a 5-minute window. That's lack of poise. And that comes from a young team, unfortunately, in my opinion. And it's unfortunate the vets seem to be blamed for something that's clearly caused by youth. Rough long season. Yeah, Renee. Yeah. It's almost like you don't want it to be over. Like, and they still have a chance. I'm not like done, but like I am in my head, like already strategizing for the off season, right? Like, what are the moves that can be made moving forward, and how do we get better going into next season? Can't even make a push or the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, the whole season's just been a spiral at this point. We understand what a tough schedule for the Flyers. Yeah, not enough practice. I mean, again, you're right with the youth. You combine that with lack of practice and I think that's why we're getting the benefit of a doubt and why AV is not fired, right? Why the coaching staff is not thrown under the bus. It's kind of, they're just going, well, maybe they kind of expected to some degree that something could go wrong. Maybe not like this, but you know, It's not an excuse, right? It's not an excuse because other teams had to go through it as well. But it's when you put it all together, it's like kind of understandable, right? Or at least you can identify what can cause a lot of these issues. You don't have to completely panic and go like, "What happened?" There's no rhyme or reason here. Yeah, no. So Cliff, no Myers tonight. I don't think it was because of injury. Haig did look good. I think it was literally probably because Haig looked good in practice. Myers is just not like the same player this year. It happens all the time to young players. I don't think it's nothing to panic about as far as like Phil Myers' overall potential. Same with Provorov and all this stuff. Like nobody should panic, and I mean that honestly. I know a lot of people are going to want to, and they're going to want to assume that you see some fluctuations in the game. Remember, majority of these defensemen, they do not develop until their mid-20s. So you're watching a development process, which takes longer than most of us like to admit. Even I'm wrong usually. I'm usually like a season ahead, or 2 seasons ahead because you get excited. You see so much potential. You want to see it on a regular basis. And the reality is, and that's why we need a veteran. That's why we need a voice, two in the room, maybe add a couple, three, maybe swap some vets out if we want to get new type of voices, but we're gonna have to add stability to the locker room. So yeah, he did have to sit, unfortunately, but Myers doesn't look great. So I don't blame the coaches actually, and I love Phil Myers. I thought he'd be on the top pairing, but man, this season he just looks so shaky. My buddy Anthony was saying, "Crime Family, you nailed that." I did want Drew to score that goal. I thought he had it. That line they are listed as the third line anymore. They obviously weren't, but at a time until the coach just switch up these lines and put Giroux with Couturier. I mean, I'm kind of shocked they haven't done it at this point. I understand why they haven't, but they're still losing games. I like these lines better than what they were doing, but I just want to see Giroux kind of let loose a little bit, give Couturier those minutes in the middle. Maybe not though. We'll see what happens. The power play's been penalty kill. Man, the special teams are killing us. Sorokin is nuts in the shootout. Yeah, he's been really good. I mean, Sorokin, Shesterkin, Gorgiev, Hart. We have a lot of young talent in goal in this division, so it's annoying. But the one thing to remember about Sorokin, he is playing for a Lou Lamoriello team. Every goalie they put in net looks better than they are. Having said that, I do think Sorokin is for real. I don't think it's a coincidence. So you combine the two together, he's going to be a dangerous goalie, right? The key is though to play good defense around them, and we are not doing that for Hart. We're exposing Hart's weaknesses, and it's our fault as a team. Last year Hart was able to make up for it, but as we see, every young player suffered outside of Joel Farabee this year. Sorokin is nuts. Yeah, he's definitely super skilled. I can definitely appreciate Sorokin. He's awesome to watch. I just hate playing against him, right? Though I'm still going to be very honest with you guys. I don't think any of these goalies are as good as Hart. I'm going to make it very clear. It's easy to jump on the bandwagon for everybody. I'm also not losing hope on the Flyers. I'm still very much into the thought that the Flyers are a very talented team. They need to sign Seth Jones or Dougie Hamilton. Yeah, like okay, I love that idea to pair with Provorov. Yeah, and then the other D-man, Anthony. You know, I'm not gonna say a perfect world because I don't even think that's like a perfect thing. Maybe the Seth Jones is. I think that is ideal, right? If we can get a player of those caliber, especially a guy like that can be here for a while. I mean, I would trade for one of them even and protect them, especially Seth Jones. I mean, I would get him now if I could, right? If I could even trade potentially even Phil Myers to get Seth Jones over here, right? And get the rights. Not that I would do this, right? But and I wouldn't do it necessarily Phil Myers. Maybe I'd trade somebody else actually. But I would try to get the rights over here and try to sign that guy long term. I'd protect him over another defenseman. Because again, Seth Jones, Provorov, Sanheim, there's your three. I mean, I love it, right? It's a more developed, higher end version of Phil Myers. So I'd love that. Here's the reality. I don't know if those guys are actually going to make it to market. I mean, I wouldn't let them go personally if I was a GM. So I have a hard time seeing them being exposed in the UFA market. Now, Dougie Hamilton has passed around, so maybe he will be exposed. I do think he'll be a big target for the Flyers if he is. My personal selection, again, would try to be another veteran guy. If we can do another Matt Niskanen trade, try to steal money from a team, like, right, like what did the Islanders do from New Jersey? 1 first-round pick for 2 players at pretty high salary. They're taking cash for picks. We can do that. We can do that. We can take on money. We're a rich team. So I would still look to see if we can get an awesome veteran in here that's even a little bit older than Hamilton, like somebody who really is a zero maintenance player, like zero maintenance, just like Niskanen. Like he's not going to complain. If anything, he's going to help with the complaining of the other guys. Like that's the stuff I really want to see. But if we can get Seth Jones in here, I mean, I'm sold 100%. Dougie Hamilton also sounds great. So either one of those make a better team. I would imagine whatever the Flyers do at this point at the trade deadline, assuming that things are the way they are and we're probably fading out into the night as far as the playoffs go, it will be a move to either bring in an asset or bring in a player that they will protect going into next season. I don't think they're going to want to protect any more players. So I think potentially you move a guy like Scott Lawton, maybe you can get a first-round pick for him, use that first-round pick, flip it for a defenseman in the offseason in a package deal, right? Now we're talking, right? After expansion, right? So I think the Flyers will look to hoard assets, keep their cap open, and then make that big move in the offseason to kind of flip their culture around, or at least ignite their culture. But I love the creativity. I mean, I think we'd love to see that. Sports Fanatic News, Haig did not look good tonight. I agree. Haig did look good, yes. Myers will be just fine. Growing pains. Oh, it's Joe, by the way. Oh, what's up, Joe? Sorry, didn't get that, dude. Yeah, I think Haig did look good. He's been physical, and that's been nice because we haven't been very physical tonight. And then losing Morin so early, it was like, good thing Haig stepped up. And it's good to see him back. I mean, he's had a rough year too, just like everybody else. Blackwood, another young good. Yep, Michael Blackwood, thank you. Right, another one. That's the division stacked, and that's why people that's why nobody should be like panicking about everything. Like everybody's got talent. Like the Rangers have a ton of talent. They have a ton of talent. So it's like, it's not crazy that the Rangers can go in and shelve all these goals. It's not insane. The thing that's crazy about it is that they've been consistent doing it, where when you see young teams, you really don't see them being very consistent. So I would actually expect the Rangers to drop off as the season continues. Could be wrong there. I expect the Flyers to be much better. We could sign Nicholas Hjalmarsson in the offseason or trade for him now. Yeah, it's definitely possible. Hjalmarsson could be that guy. Here's the thing, though, about Hjalmarsson is like, he is an upgrade defensively. He will help us, no doubt about it. But is it a culture change enough? No, but it's good. It's a good move. But if I was Fletcher, I would be looking a little bit bigger. It's like that would be my backup move, would be Hjalmarsson, because it's like a nice, safe defensive addition, right? It's like, it's affordable, it fits nicely, it's not too complicated, and you can probably make it happen, or at least you think you can make it happen, right? So I like the trade, Joe, right? Like I'm not putting it down, and and I've talked to you about this, right? Or over the phone. I like the Hjalmarsson pickup, but I'm curious about getting creative. Like none of us saw the Niskanen trade happening, right? I would, if you would have told me, hey, we can go out and get Matt Niskanen, I'd be like, oh, let's go get Niskanen. Like I personally was always really high on him. So if we have a guy that we covet quite a bit, as a team, I would love to, and obviously Seth Jones be of that caliber. But if there's another guy out there, I would like to see us try to go for him. Like, let's try to get the guy we want. Let's try, especially if he's the guy we can build a culture around. Like, there's a reason we went for Shea Weber back in the day, right? And there's a reason that the Canadians wanted Shea Weber over Subban. I mean, they wanted the personality in the room. Weber dominated their culture once he got there, where Subban was kind of adapting. Like Subban's a big personality, but locker room culture, I think, matters more. Yeah, and I think Shea Weber brings that, dominates the room. Anybody else? Any other questions? Oh, we got another one here. Do you think Cam York will be NHL ready come October? My answer is yes. I'm in the minority of that. I've been saying that for 18 months, maybe more. And I'll explain to you why. Because it is a risky assessment to make on my part. It is not a safe bet to make, because you're looking at a young defenseman, one who's actually 6 months underage for his age group as well. Something definitely to keep in mind with him. So when you see how good he is, recognize that he's probably even better, because he's an underager, just like Jack Hughes. And if you saw the jump that Jack Hughes made from one year to the next, that's a big reason why. Because in those young ages, even 6 months of development is humongous. And my whole thing is, I look at the program he comes from, right? And I mentioned Jack Hughes, Trevor Zegras, Oliver Wahlstrom, Cole Caulfield, Joel Farabee. Again, we can continue going. John Beecher. We can continue going down the list. That list is exceptional for young players. Now, they're not all NHL ready when they get there. Having said that, a lot of them tend to be ahead of schedule. And we look at Joel Farabee, ahead of schedule maturity wise, training regiment wise, and just overall preparation to be a pro. We saw that with Cam York, right? He led Team USA in a defensive game against a historically good Canadian team where they shut them down defensively. People still don't even think he's as good as he is, and he's probably better. And that's the nice thing about York, is that he's an unassumingly good player. So kind of like Provorov is, and yes, Provorov is struggling right now. But a lot of people are kind of, they want the more pizzazz, the flash, and York doesn't necessarily rely on that to make his game really strong. If the Flyers are not in good shape defensively, they might keep York away from this team, to not throw him under the bus. Having said that, if they go out and get that veteran guy, they might have to move some pieces anyway. I mean, there is a good chance that Cam York could be better than Robert Haig is today. So we have to be aware of that, right? And if you think about October, the kid is a very good trainer. He's better skater than the majority of our defensemen already. He's been playing college hockey. There is a good chance that this kid is NHL ready. I think they're gonna stray on the side of confident or caution with him, but we'll see how he's used now in the AHL. I mean, he's probably going to be the number one defenseman, and he's probably going to eat up a lot of minutes day one. And when you see that happen, and again, I'm assuming that, but I almost have no doubt the kid is a grade above everybody, and he's a kid. So I do expect him to come in and start taking minutes from Pouliot and Logan Day. So I think, yeah, I think for sure he's going to be in the conversation. And we have a really deep team, but our defense has stunk this year, and he's a defensive specialist. So I can see the coaches falling in love with him. He's perfectly compared to Niskanen, in my opinion. He has 3 cups. We don't expect much from Niskanen and Hjalmarsson. Yeah, and I like that. I think Hjalmarsson has a little bit of weaker game than, offensive game than Niskanen. So it's a little bit, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but he's not going to put up the same offensive punch. But to your point, yeah, I agree. He brings up a lot of the great same assets. That's where I'm like, that's a good move. Can we one-up that, though, Joe? Right? Can we do better than Niskanen, right? Because Niskanen was great, but he's not better than Provorov, right? Can we bring in a guy who on nights will be better than Provorov, or sometimes maybe he is better than Provorov already right now, and we really take the weight off of Provorov, and all of a sudden he can excel tremendously. And just a thought, I mean, it's much easier said than done. And if we end up with Hjalmarsson, again, I'm not going to be complaining. We need a good defenseman here for sure. How do you feel about the Islanders and Devils trade? I think it's a really good trade for the Islanders. I think Lou Lamoriello is an exceptional GM. I think the culture fit is perfect for them. He gave up a first, which is a lot, but not really, because he took on a bunch of money. They're going to need him in the room. And I think they're going to be a really tough team to play come playoff time. They're already deep. They're already going to be deeper. It might be that little bit extra they need to actually beat some of the more upper echelon talent teams, because they don't have necessarily a bunch of high end scorers. They score with team effort and consistency and structure and process. But now they already had a deep team. Now they're even deeper. So I think it's a good move. And I would imagine they might even make another trade. They have a legit chance of a Stanley Cup this year. I mean, if they can play discipline, sky's the limit for any team who can play discipline. If you have the talent, though, I do worry about Barzal taking them to the finals. And the lack of a true number one defenseman. But again, you can do it. You can do it. I could see them being a team that loses in the finals, to be honest with you. Not wins, but loses in the finals. Again, the team with the true elite player plus the combination of everything typically takes that the mantle. Will Fletcher finally trade Voracek this offseason? I know his contract is not something another team would want, but packaging him in the first round pick or something like that to get him out of here. So I don't think they have the attitude of getting him out of here. I'll tell you that. I do think there's a chance that maybe you want to swap Voracek for a different veteran. I brought up like the type of thing where you move Voracek for Brent Burns, right? They have about equal contract. You want to change voices in the room. I don't think this is going to happen necessarily. But this is the type of way I see moving Voracek. I don't think that in any way they think they need to get rid of him. Maybe you see him exposed for the sheer fact that most teams can't afford it, but I don't think so. I do think there's a chance he gets moved. It'll be discussed, but it'll be to bring in a different vet, if anything. And I think the last thing they really want to do is remove too much veteran leadership. I think they want to add to this group. I think we'll see some older players on this team. It might upset some people, but they're going to bring in some veterans, calm this locker room down. Ballsy trade by Lou. Yeah, totally. I think he's exceptional. Chris, what's up, buddy? I think Lou Lamoriello is just, I think he's kind of the bee's knees. And for all those people who made fun of Hextall for being really strict and all that stuff, like Lou Lamoriello doesn't even let you grow a beard. So again, consistency is key. You can be an asshole and still lead to a championship. But Lou Lamoriello knows what he's doing. And obviously hired an amazing coach as well. Having said that, I don't think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. Can't wait to watch York and yeah, dude, I can't wait. And honestly, I can't wait to hear your feedback on it, Joe. For those of you guys who are not aware, Sports Fanatic News here in the chat is Joe Bork, and he writes for us, but we send him a lot of the Phantoms game where he goes himself, but he goes to a lot of the Phantoms games, watches a ton of the Phantom stuff. So check him out for coverage because they'll have insight on York. And I'm definitely be watching out for York. I love York. Kyle Palmieri will pay off for the Islanders. Yeah, I like him a lot. I really like Palmieri. I didn't think we were going to get him. I'm surprised the Islanders got him, but when you look at the Lou Lamoriello connection, I mean, it makes sense. That guy knows what he's doing. Chris Jalmerson is a $5 million cap. Have to, yeah. Well, we'll see what the cap is towards the. We'll see what it is. I mean, I'm not giving Jalmerson $5 million a year. I can tell you that much. That's not the type of player I would invest long term in, and that's kind of what I was talking about, Joe. Is like, I don't know if I'm going to invest seriously in Jalmerson beyond a couple of years. Like, can I get a guy where I really want him to be part of my culture moving forward? And maybe I want him here for 5 years, even if he's like 32. I'm like, fine, I'll take him till he's 38. There's a lot of defensemen that I would take till they're 38 years old. Matt Niskanen is one of them. Enough offensive minded. Yeah, no, I hear you, Joe. I think, like I said, I would not be upset if we got Jalmerson. I just think we want to can we go a level above them? Can we get a class above? Like, Ekholm, obviously, I would say he's a class above Jalmerson, but there's even a level above that, right? Like that Ryan Ellis. Like, we're not talking about number one defenseman, but like there's, there's number two guys. Can we get a real number two who maybe is a team's number one, but shouldn't be, right? Like what we had with Timonen. Timonen is the best example of that. If we can find another Kimmo Timonen out there, a guy who, is entering his 30s, due for a contract of some sort, right? Like we see the Seth Jones and the Dougie Hamilton stuff, but like due for a contract, or the team can't retain him, or they have to shed salary because they lost too much money this year. These are things we really need to look out for because there are opportunities, right? Teams, it's not just about the cap this year. It's about fiscal responsibility to your actual organization. Like a lot of these people, like your buddy, right, who you've been working with for the past 2-3 years to build this organization, he could lose his job because you have a $4 million player and you're not making the playoffs this year. And he's only under contract for a year or maybe 2 years. And you're like, well, we lost money so much this year where we have to shed salary. So there's opportunity, and you're kind of helping these teams in a way so you actually don't need to pay as much. And again, I think that'll happen after expansion. Dave, thanks for joining, buddy. No comment. I like it. Yeah, we're just not that good, Dave. I think we have the talent, but the execution is not there. The loss in veteran leadership has clearly led to a lack of execution, preparation, and combine that with the lack of practices and COVID, we just weren't prepared. We weren't as prepared as other teams. I mean, we all here work in a professional sense. Let's say you work in a large corporation, right? And some teams are more prepared than others. Happens all the time, right? Something to look at. Something to look at. I do go this, and I mentioned this on the Martinez episode last night, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast the other day too. The thing you got to notice about Fletcher is he didn't really do much this offseason. Like, some of these issues were predictable. The lack of the fourth line center was predictable. The lack of a defensive defenseman to cover for Niskanen is definitely predictable. And we knew that Gustafsson wasn't that guy. I mean, I knew it immediately. I know maybe people didn't agree with me at the time, but I knew he was worse than Ghost defensively. I said it immediately, and I was like, it didn't make sense because he's definitely not taking the top pairing because he's worse than Ghost defensively. And I knew that immediately. That was like a power play. That was like reacting to last year's power play. So again, maybe he completely misread his team, but do we really think Chuck Fletcher did that? He read the team so well the year before. To some degree, I think the expectations were set. Okay, here's my conspiracy theory thing behind it, is that what happens if Chuck Fletcher's like, hey, I don't want to get beat up by the expansion draft again. And we're at risk here of doing that. I'm not going to make any moves, and I'm going to risk the fact that we might take a step back this year. But it's a crazy year. We'll see what happens. There's a crazy draft, which, again, if we can get an extra first-round pick, the likelihood of us getting an elite player in the draft increases this year later in the draft because nobody knows what the rankings are this year. And if they're pretending, they're lying. Lou for 2. He's been the best buds and the boards. I love the Palmieri. Yeah, Palmieri's awesome. I mean, maybe he'll be available as free agent. I mean, he's a guy I would like over here too. I mean, talk about veteran leadership. If the Flyers make some kind of big trade, they might have an opening on the wing. Who knows what will happen at this point? I mean, like, if you want to get an elite young defenseman, you have to maybe move an elite young player. I don't know about that though. I don't expect anything like that, to be honest. I do expect a more veteran guy or a free agent. I think we're going to hoard talent because we have money we can spend to the cap. We just have to be short-term contracts. Veterans will take short-term, especially now under COVID. Our youth and defense hurts. We need defense. Yeah. Like Crime Fam, they have the talent to pass. It's the poise, right? It's like, look at Sanheim. And I've talked about this a lot. Sanheim is a complete head case in the sense, and it's because he's a kid. He's always been like this. He's all off confidence driven. When his confidence is high, he's number one defenseman. When his confidence is low, he's bottom pairing guy. And you see the humongous fluctuation that comes with his confidence. As he becomes more confident, older, that confidence sway will go away. But look, he scored that goal the other night. All of a sudden, he looks so much better. It's not a coincidence. But if we bring in a guy, that Yager effect, right? Yager, his work life, his ethics, just the way he approached the game, his confidence from every game, just not getting rattled, that spreads to the team. We need to do that. Yeah. You're talking about Joe here on Joe Almerson, 3 to 4 million. Yeah. Edler would be awesome. Oh, yeah. That's definitely the type of guy I'm talking about also, but he never leaves there. I've been waiting for him to leave that team forever, and he never leaves. The Flyers are playing tough till the end here. Yeah, they're not going to give up. I mean, realistically, the Flyers are going to look like they're in it till the very end of the season. It's going to piss people off to some degree. You're going to tell them to tank. But no, I want this team fighting, assuming that you're making a statement for next season. Because this team is not getting blown up. It's going to be added to. It's going to be adjusted. But a lot of these players are still here. This is a process. There is a plan here. You cannot completely deviate from your plan. You cannot I was even talking to Martinez about this last night. I'm pretty sure he was talking about Ron Hextall told him this, but you cannot overreact to one season. You cannot overreact to a bubble season as well. This isn't normal. It's not normal. So you don't want to respond. You never want to respond to the following season based off of the previous season because the rules of what is happening will change. All you want to do is build the best team you can. Right. So we don't want to start over and be like, oh, well, this didn't work out. We don't know because realistically, a lot of these young guys are going to take a step forward. This will adjust. Things have a tendency to adjust, right? So you don't want to completely react to this season. What you want to do is really just add. You want to be like, okay, I know that this team wasn't good enough. So maybe I have to remove one player or two, but I'm going to add. I want more talent, right? Add more vets. Change needs to happen. Something's going to happen. EJW, something's going to happen. There's going to be some kind of change. If it's a coaching staff, it'll be because and I see I want AV to get fired. I don't think the Isles are winning the cup. They seem like the team is going to lose in the Stanley Cup Finals, to be honest with you. I said that earlier. Yeah, I don't think AV is going to get fired because I think he would have got fired already. I mean, they've been blown out over and over again. So if he was going to get fired, I think it would have happened. And I think it's not happening because I think expectations were set. I think our expectations were incorrect because we're stupid fans, because we don't realize, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult other people. I talk to myself that way, but we don't care that they're young. We don't talk to them. We don't know what they're like on and off the ice. We don't know what kind of jokesters they are, what kind of effort, what kind of time they show up to work in the morning. We don't really know. Having said that, I think if there was something at risk, I think we would have seen a bigger move. I don't think anybody was expecting this type of decline. I think at the very worst, maybe we'd have had, we'd be like a borderline team right now. We'd be fighting for that last spot, not slowly descending into mediocrity. Again, I do think things will balance up, and I would not be surprised after the Flyers make a few moves in the offseason. Said this earlier, they're the best team in the league. I could still see that happening next year. Raffle, Jake, Braun, Gus have to go. I don't agree with the Braun statement. I think he's been very solid, especially this year, and they need that voice in the room. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think Raffle's I think they love him in the organization. I don't think he has much time left on the Flyers. But if he wants to play like a swing role between the Flyers and the Phantoms, I think I would welcome that. I love Jake Voracek. I don't think that he's in the room, and have to move Jake to kind of swap that out and do like a culture change with another team that maybe needs a spark. And that's why I mentioned Brent Burns for Jake Voracek, because again, you're just you want to switch one type of leader for another type of leader and see if the locker room can kind of evolve and change. Braun has been okay, but he's playing out of his role. If he was playing in the bottom pairing, he's actually having the best season as a Flyer so far. He's doing a very good job at his role, but you can't use him as a top pairing defender. That's not what he does. He's a one-dimensional player. That's why he's best suited for the bottom pairing. He's very good at stick checking. He's physical. He's very good at his reads. He's not the best skater, but he can move around. But again, in the offensive zone, he's not giving you much. His breakout passes are mediocre. His shots on net are inaccurate and also don't have enough oomph on them. He's just not an offensive player, and that's really what it is. Nolan Patrick. Oh wait, no, hold on. I missed one by Dave. Dave, looks like Comcast, like Rogers here in Canada, they have the cash. I want to take a step back. Well, Toronto took a step back last year. And then they went out and kind of did a bunch of moves this offseason, right? They shelled out for all these veterans. Not a similar pattern, right? They got Joe Thornton, they got Wayne Simmons, they brought in TJ Brody. They just kept adding veterans to that room. And it's paid off. And while I don't think Toronto Maple Leafs are as good as their record shows, because I do think that division is weaker, I do think they're a definite contender. And I think those additions are the similar stuff what the Flyers need to do. We need a solid work environment. That means when things get rattled, that there are voices in that room that do not get rattled, right? When you're down 3-1, you need a guy I'll throw out Chris Pronger, right? Why? Pronger doesn't get rattled down. I mean, he'll yell at you. He'll yell at you if you get rattled, right? We need that guy. So Nolan Patrick, I mean, it's tough to evaluate any of these young guys right now. I'll be honest with you, because they all look a half step slower than they did at times. Like Nolan Patrick looks really good in bursts, but it's like, how is he really being used? Like I'm fine with him on the fourth line. I mean, Sean Couturier played on fourth line. You know, defensively he's sound. Um, Offensively, he hasn't done too much, but I could say the same about like almost everybody. Like, what has Scott Lawton done offensively of late? And he's playing, top point. I'm not knocking Lawton, but again, I'm just looking at the team. Like Hayes can't score goals right now. It's tough. It's tough to watch because it's hard to evaluate a player under these circumstances when it's everybody, right? It's like if the team was on fire and Nolan Patrick was the only one not on fire, then I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe we have a problem with Nolan. But that's not what's happening, right? And that's why it's so hard. And it sucks because every time Nolan Patrick is back, the team plays poorly. It's like he was out for a year. The team was playing well. And no, I don't think there's a relation there. All right. Let me think other thoughts here. I do think I thought Carter Hart looked pretty solid. Again, I think we're asking too much of the kid when we're playing such terrible defense. It's really upsetting. Playing bad defense is like insulting to me. Who do you think our Carter and Richards player is today? And with the Flyers, I mean, it's Giroux and Voracek. It's Giroux and Voracek. Now, that Carter and Richards thing, if you guys know much about that, I mean, there were serious problems with that, and there were serious disagreements with Carter, Richards, and the Flyers organization. And that was kind of brewing to the forefront. So it was not expected that both of them were going to be traded, right? The whole thought is we were just going to trade one of them, and then they ended up shipping both of them out of town. Now, the Flyers didn't get better after those trades, right? We got worse. To make that clear, it took us a while to reset from losing those guys. So I don't really think that the Flyers are looking to do that. That's why I said I think the Flyers really want to add. We knock really hard on Jake Voracek, but he's not doing anything wrong, guys. Like he's not the one. Like the Flyers aren't concerned with Jake Voracek. You know, we have high expectations for Voracek, and that's fine. And could you say you play better? Yeah, you could to some degree. I mean, but him and Giroux have been pretty much the most consistent offensively all year. JVR is tailored off. And it's like without these guys, like I can't even imagine what this locker. It would be worse, guys. That's my point. Is like people talk about trading Giroux. It's like it would be so much worse without him. This team would be going through a spiral. Like we might be the worst team in the NHL. Look at the Buffalo Sabres. You tell me they don't have talent? They have talent in that team. You know, they have plenty of talent in that team, and they stink. You know? And I don't mean they have plenty of talent to be one of the best teams. They have plenty of talent to be competitive and not to stink. You know, not to take a step backwards. That problem with Jack Eichel. Like these are locker room, these are culture issues, right? And I don't think necessarily Voracek is a culture problem. I don't think Giroux is definitely not. But I don't think Voracek or JVR, any of the guys are a culture problem. But maybe we just need more voices or a different voice. Like there are players that carry a voice, a larger voice. There are players that have different leadership techniques, styles. We don't even have enough leadership, in my opinion, especially on the back end. But that's what I think we're talking about here, right? You're not getting rid of somebody, but you're trying to bring in just more guys who can take on those moments where you just score a humongous goal and the other team is bringing it at you 100% and you're already ready for it mentally. And you're not fazed by it. And you don't care about the moment. I was actually just watching a video with Kobe Bryant talking about, rest in peace, talking about the moment, and how to overcome this fear of the moment. And he talks about how the mental games that you play with and how you have to kind of, he worked up a mental system in his brain to kind of remove the importance of those big moments that make everybody nervous, right? And look at, again, he was exceptional, how hard it is to do that. It takes years of your life to do that. And I think realistically, veterans are much better at that than young guys. And we're going to need more of them. And, you see it with Voracek and Giroux. I mean, like, imagine this game against the Islanders without one of them. Again, they're probably going to lead the team in points this year. It'll be them and Couturier. and JVR will continue to tailor off. The season will continue the way it is. And even the Flyers don't make it, it'll be Giroux 1 or 2 on the team in points. Same with Voracek. And, Couturier right there with them. And then we're talking about removing these guys. It's like, we need to help them. We need to add. Look, last year we never talked about moving these guys, right? We just add a little bit more. A little bit more. We won't be talking about removing them anymore. Go after Johnny. I don't think we're going after Johnny Hockey. I also don't think Johnny Hockey would help us to the way we need it. We'll end up complaining about him because he's small, undersized, a playmaker. We don't necessarily need him. We have Claude Giroux. So I don't think it's I like him a lot. I'd be happy if we got him, but I just don't see him as a big priority. It would be a case of like, if we move Jake Voracek for Brent Burns and then we got our defenseman and we're like, all right, well, maybe we'll bring in Johnny Hockey. But again, do we really need to remove size on this team? He's pretty small. At this point, again, I'd be happy if we get him, but he's not my biggest target. I would take Jeff. I would love Jeff Carter right now. I mean, again, look, we chat on him. He's a 40 goal scorer. He always misses the net, but he was a great player. He played a two-way game. Again, a goal scoring center with size, with a wicked snapshot, capable of putting up 40 goals essentially by himself most of the time. Again, like, we undervalue players because they're not perfect, but these are key pieces to winning Stanley Cup as we saw them win for a different team. Yeah, no problem, Crime Family. I like that you guys ask questions. It makes it a lot more interesting than me just coming up with stuff myself. I appreciate you guys asking me. Thank you. Yeah, Carter Harper Voracek. That'd be funny. I mean, I would love Carter would never come back here, and I don't blame him. It's probably not even good for him, to be honest with you. And if you look at I listened to the Mike Richards interview with Spit and Chicklets. It's like, I agree with Richards in a lot of ways, and I don't like what happened with Richards and Carter. Having said that, as an adult today, there were things that they did that they could have done differently to avoid that situation. Again, I wouldn't say it's completely their fault at all. It never is. But they allowed themselves to be in that position to some degree because, yeah, exactly. Dry Island, like, call it whatever you want, but Scott Hartnell was traded immediately when Hextall took over. Again, this all had to do with discipline, and maybe he wasn't right, and he took the fun out of the room to a degree also, but we were never a disciplined team. Our discipline stunk. And to some degree, you can see it's still today, but it's a different type of discipline. We were a better team back then too. So it's like, what kind of discipline were we talking about? It's interesting because we can nitpick on our players, but the other teams aren't perfect either. They all fluctuate. And I said it on the video the other day. There's no team that wins the Stanley Cup that doesn't struggle on the way to get there. And I mean, like, in season, the season before, look, we saw, right? Tampa Bay gets eliminated in the first round, embarrassed, right? St. Louis is like one of the worst teams in the league, wins the Stanley Cup, loses their coach. We didn't even make it the year we went to the finals, we crumbled. John Stevens gets fired. We end up going to the finals, right? It's like, pain and suffering is a requirement of success. That's why we should get used to it. That's why I play the long game. That's why it's important not to panic. Yeah, the Leafs fell apart under Babcock. Right, and are you going to tell me, look, I get that people dislike Babcock, but he'll be back. And he's not a bad coach. He's probably an asshole. On that I believe. That I definitely believe. But he's a smart hockey mind. He's a smart hockey man. So I don't know if he'll be a coach again, but he'll be back in the NHL to some degree. The Leafs fell apart again, lost the room. That locker room is key. But if you give him the players he has now, or the players that they have now on the Leafs with Babcock, a lot less noticeable. And by the way, I thought John Tavares was supposed to answer all of their, all their prayers, right? I think it's a top-down thing. I think this is up to Chuck Fletcher, guys. I'll be honest with you. This is up to Chuck Fletcher. It really is. And he owned up to it, which I appreciate. There is a tone that must be set from the GM on the way down. And maybe that's what we're about to see. Like, my conversation with my team this offseason, I'd be like, okay, We need to recognize what happened this year. We took our foot off the pedal. And I would be like, hey, I take ownership for this, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, these guys need to come in and have the best offseason. If they're really not going to make the playoffs, that means you have extra time now. You have extra time to prepare for next season because you guys are going to be back. I would say it to them. I said, you're all going to be back. And you better play your goddamn asses off. Because that's the reality, is that there's enough. This team was built to win championships. We can jump on them. We can get upset that they're underperforming, but we're upset at them because the expectations were high, not because there's a lack of talent. I saw people like throwing around like trade Sanheim. It's like, absolutely not. Well, am I supposed to go through all the pain and suffering and then give him away? And unless I'm getting an elite player back, like if I'm getting Seth Jones for Sanheim, okay, now we're talking, right? But you give me your stud young defenseman, I'll give you mine. Like if we were gonna get line A, if we're gonna trade Sanheim, I'm like, all right, well, I want line A. Like I want an elite project back, right? Most players are projects. It's like very rare. Like even Nathan McKinnon didn't come in lighting the world on fire. Players are projects. You're developing a player. Elite players are not drafted; they are developed. They're very rarely drafted. Very rarely. Look at Capo Caco. I thought he was elite. Right? It's like they have an elite skill set, but being a pro takes time. That's why what Joel Farabee is doing is so impressive. Is he already thinks like a pro at 19 years old? That's the same thing about Cam York. Is what I was saying earlier. He already thinks like a pro, and he's underage. So I can only imagine how good this kid really is going to be. If they passed up Cole Caulfield twice, which is kind of crazy, there has to be a reason, because Cole Caulfield is sick. And I think Cam York is underrated. Any other question, guys? We're getting close to an hour, so I'm probably going to get close. Oh, here we go. In all seriousness now, but when this Flyer season is over, they say COVID killed the group and could not come back. I mean, they already kind of said that. Martinez actually brought it up to me yesterday when we were recording. And it's kind of true, though. If you look at every team that has suffered from COVID, they've had a very difficult time rebounding. It does kind of make sense, right? If your players actually got hit hard, they lose even extra, right? You're already struggling, and then you have to make those games up in a condensed schedule right after you just suffered from it. So the combination of it does make sense. Having said that, it won't matter at the end of the day, right? These excuses will be irrelevant because every team had to go through struggles, and it's kind of like luck of the draw. And I think that's why people won't lose their jobs and why there won't be a humongous, need to change culture and all the stuff that, people are panic about. It's why we won't see that stuff. I mean, realistically, we're not going to see. And I honestly think Chuck Fletcher is wise to be that way. No matter how angry we get, no matter how much we demand trades, none of that is the right process, right? There is a plan here. In my opinion, there was already a plan to make us better after this expansion as it is. I think he's referenced it a bunch of times. He's been waiting for expansion. He's gotten hosed on it in the past, bad, and he essentially lost his job. And if you look at it, it's affecting the Ghost thing, right, too, because he didn't trade Ghost when he probably could have, right? So he's holding on to Ghost where he traded Brent Burns, right? He didn't prepare for expansion last time and had to trade off a first-round pick to keep a defenseman he didn't want to keep, right? He had too many defensemen. So what is he doing now? Not hoarding too many defensemen. He doesn't want to get caught again. And if I were there, I would set that expectation in my leadership to Dave Scott. I would tell them, hey, ahead of time, this is what I see happening this year, and it's going to be a risk. And I don't want to pull all my punches now, but if you guys give me a little bit of time and you let me wait out this year and you let this expansion go, I have a lot of options, right? I got all these young guys. Right now, they struggle. A lot of these young guys struggled in their contract here, so they're not getting the same money they were getting, right? So you can start saving on that, and the cap's not going up, right? But that big move will be available. There will be something. On a lighter note, ESPN will sign Gary Thorne to announce. It's so funny you said that. I was actually talking about Gary Thorne as soon as yesterday. I love Gary Thorne's voice. He is the best. I totally agree. It is interesting, and I brought this up the other night. There is an opportunity for the NHL here to make a statement. I don't like ESPN. mostly lately. I loved them when I was younger. They're just kind of annoying now, quite frankly. Most television is annoying. Having said that, when it comes to sports broadcasting, some of their broadcasters are just exceptional. And the reality is that majority of the country watches ESPN. It's in the airports, it's in restaurants, it's the sports channel a lot of times, right? It brings hockey back into relevance more than we felt in a long time, and I think it's actually a very aggressive move. And you combine that with the combination that the league will probably find a way to grow from this, adding in Seattle, adding in other elements. The NHL could be heading into one of the most profitable periods ever. And I know that sounds kind of weird, and I don't think most people are saying that. But I don't like saying what other people say. But profitability, right? If you look at their dip right now, they have an opportunity, especially once you get past COVID restrictions. They've already lost a bunch of money on that respect, but you have an opportunity now to rebrand the sport. A lot like sports are down everywhere, right? You come in with ESPN with a new marketing package. You get aggressive with filling people in those seats. You're coming in with expansion and Seattle, right? You can reshuffle your divisions again, right? Because you've already done it. You're going to do it again, right? You're probably going to do it again. So you have all these like kind of marketing bubbles that you could use. And if they can really, really reposition the online virtual package of watching the game, I think there's a lot to do here. And if ESPN, Disney Plus, and all that can really help with that, combine that with the NHL package where like you can really watch everything through apps at this point. I think they're on to something, but I think it'll take a little bit. But in 2-3 years, we might look back and be like, oh, this was actually a very good thing for the NHL in the end, right? Just the way they responded to something bad. Were the Flyers 11-3 going into March? Yeah, I mean, yeah, the COVID destroyed them. I mean, if you remember, um, we were playing the outdoor game with barely any players in the lineup. I mean, and since Giroux came back from that, he's been incredible. By the way, COVID was like a superpower for that guy. I love Claude Giroux. He's my favorite player on the Flyers, and maybe outside of Simone Gagne is my favorite Flyer. I will say that. And that's a tough position to sit at. Um, I'm with you on York. I can't wait to see him. Yeah, totally. Crime Family. I think York is going to be a very mature, special young player, the same way Provorov is. I could definitely be wrong, and he's not. I don't think so. I just saw him play already, and I'm like, I don't know. Kid looks better than most of our defensemen. I like when people are surprised about Morin playing well. I don't know what the surprise is. This is the same game I've seen from him the whole time. I never understood why they picked Haig over Morin to begin with, because I'm like, Morin does what Haig does, but better. He's more of a risk, I guess, at times, as we can see. But physically, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Morin gets taken in expansion. He's such a rare combination. If he wasn't such a risk and they knew what they were getting and he was already playing, I mean, how many 6'8" defensemen who can play in the NHL do you find that can skate the way he can skate? Gary Thorne's a shit. Yeah, agreed. Growing up, Gary Thorne. Oh, yeah, and Bill Clement. Yeah, that was the best. That was really the best. Then we got Bill. It's still, Bill's the best. All right, coming up at 11 p.m. I got time for a little bit more here. Any other questions or anything else you want me to answer before we tie this one up? I know it's a deflating loss. It's a deflating season, like you don't even really know what you're waiting for. They're not out of the playoffs, so you're like, but as soon as we're going to start talking more about the Phantoms as we roll in, the Phantoms might be going on a Calder run, so it is exciting in that sense, and we'll have plenty of coverage on that. And I'll probably sign up for the AHL package just to start watching them more often. And that'll be exciting. But again, it's planning for next season. We're gonna have a very short off season, right? It's gonna be like very short off season. We still have an exciting draft. We have exciting expansion, very exciting free agency, and then a very short off season, right? So it's gonna be boom, boom, boom. So if this is the year to be bad, or at least to miss the mark, at least we don't have a long wait, and it's going to be an exciting offseason. Yeah. Yeah. Always Avatar. Yeah, I noticed that, Dave. Yeah, Claude Giroux. I'll say it over and over again because I think it falls on deaf ears for most Flyers fans. When Giroux is not here, it will be so noticeable. Like people talk about trading him, you do not want to see what will happen to this team without Claude Giroux in that locker room. Do you guys see how much they spiral now? Can you imagine taking a legend? Like Claude Giroux is a legendary hockey player. He's going to get his number retired probably by the Flyers. The very least, he's going to have his name hanging up. He's going to end up being what the number 2 point producer as a Flyer of all time, especially if he gets re-signed. He is a very, very special player, and it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that he doesn't have the support around him because outside of Eric Lindros, we really haven't had a more talented player playing on this team. Yeah, it's a bummer. So that's why it's important. It's important to rebound. And I know G's probably going to be down this year, but he's got a window still. I still think Giroux's got like 4 or 5 years left. So, and the Flyers have plenty of time here. It's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting offseason. Regardless of what happens, like I hope the Flyers still make the playoffs. And maybe we'll see a move for the Flyers to try to make the playoffs still. I wouldn't give up on it completely. Yeah, when they lost 9-0, he was embarrassed. Yeah, I mean, I was embarrassed. That was the worst. That was the worst Flyers hockey I've ever seen in a single period. Those 7 goals. I can't recall a worse period by a Flyers team in the 20-some years that I've been watching. Just complete inability to play defense. The drop off in team defense has been embarrassing. Embarrassing. The amount of odd man. Now they've gotten better the past few games, but the amount of odd man rushes, like the amount of times guys are being left out to dry, the amount of time that it's just so easy to gain our neutral zone with speed. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And to be honest with you, I'm not into firing the coaches, but a lot of this stuff seems like coaching issues to me. And maybe it's the lack of practices, but again, I'm watching systematic problems, process problems. The power play sucks. The penalty kill sucks. The 5-on-5 play gets by talent. Typically, that's a coaching issue. But I don't think AV's a bad coach. Again, we can't keep throwing everybody under the bus, right? Hackstall's a bad coach. Chief is a bad coach. John Stevie's a bad coach. Laviolette's a bad. Right? They're not bad coaches. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes they lose the room, right? Sometimes it's just a trend. You got to just do something, just to change it up. We see that it can work. But I have a feeling we're going to rebound. It's too weird. Too weird of a year. It doesn't make enough sense, Yeah. All right, let's end it on that note. I'm going to try to do these more often. I'm not going to do every game just because I'm beat and I'm still doing the podcast. And I got more Always Level Up stuff coming too. My recent episode was delayed. But I'm working on a couple episodes right now for that one. Actually 2, maybe 3 episodes. Reached out to a bunch of people. It's just tough. Getting celebrities on is a pain in the butt. But definitely going to try to do more of that. If you guys want to see more stuff of any kind, tweet at me, DM me, just content ideas. I can't promise I'll do them, but I'm interested. I'm like looking for ideas. That's why live stuff, it's been fun. So I'm going to try to do more of it. Yeah, Hamilton is UFA. Realistically, he's going to want $7 million, 7 years, something like that. I think it's absolutely doable and probably earned for him. So we'd have to give him something like that, $7.5 million. But we could do it. We could do it. Again, Hamilton's the type of guy you would invest in. I'm just not convinced that we need a guy that age. I would like somebody a little bit older, but I'm not opposed to it either. There's going to be a combination of ideas, so we'll see what happens. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it, man. I really appreciate the compliments. And thank you guys for coming and joining and commenting. It makes it so much easier to do this. And let me know if there's more of this stuff or if you want me to change anything about it. I kind of just been doing it randomly. So All right, thanks everybody. I'm gonna save this and we'll be out for the next one. And thank you again. Thank you for reading. Thank you for following everybody and for for reading Joe and Lance and and Sam. She's been killing it. She's just everywhere for us. She's been going to every game and just that girl is just relentless. So really appreciate everything you guys do for us. So thank you so much. All right. Well, hopefully on to the next one, on to a new season. And remember to always stay gritty.